Why choose a Sleep Number smart bed?
Can I make my site softer?
Can I make my site firmer?
Can we sleep cooler?
Sleep Number does that. Cools up to 8 times faster and lets you choose your ideal comfort on either side. Your Sleep Number setting. Enjoy personalized comfort for better sleep night after night. It's our Black Friday sale. Recharge this season with a bundle of cozy, soothing comfort. Now only $17.99 for our C2 mattress and base, plus free premium delivery. Prices higher in Alaska and Hawaii. Check it out at a Sleep Number store or sleepnumber.com today.
Now, the Hunt Palmer Show.
Yes! I feel like I've been waiting for this my entire life.
You're listening to the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Jolly good fun. Jolly good.
Locking down the middle of the day.
America's favorite daytime fun show.
Live from the Raising Cane studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
Welcome in. Hunt Palmer coming to you from the Raising Cane studio downtown in the capital city on this Monday. Hope your work week's off to a good start. Thanks for hanging out with us on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Jordan Kitchens, Cassie Spazzali back there on the ones and twos, and we have a lot to cover over the next couple of hours. LSU wins a game back on Saturday afternoon in Tiger Stadium. We'll react to that. Michael Katz covers Ole Miss, and there's a circus going on in Oxford currently. They've got a team that's really good. They're going to the playoff. They don't know where their coach is or where he's going or whether or not he's staying. There's a lot going on in Oxford, and it may have something to do with what goes on here in Baton Rouge. So we'll talk to Michael Katz about that, including the scene that was Oxford, Mississippi on Saturday night. We'll do that at the bottom of the hour. Dr. Jeremy Burnham with Ochsner with us a little bit later on in this hour. We'll talk to Denton Day as well. My SEC picks against the spread. We really have to dive into that at the top of hour number 2. So there's just a lot to get into. Let's crank it up like we do every day. It's our Genesis opening drive.
It's time for Hunt's opening drive, presented by Genesis of Baton Rouge.
Look, I picked Arkansas back on Friday. I did not think that LSU's defense would slow Arkansas down. I did not think that LSU's offense would produce even against a bad Arkansas defense. I was wrong. LSU's defense played a really, really good football game, and the offense did enough to get a win inside Tiger Stadium. You look back at the start of that game, and it kind of started the way I figured it might. Like, I didn't have a block punt for a touchdown, but 14-0 Hogs, okay. Like, I could see that, and I could have seen it getting away from LSU. But credit to those guys, credit to that team for bowing its neck, coming back, and making sure that they were going to play hard and do enough to win the game. They didn't have to do that. They didn't have to play hard. They don't have their head coach. Guys may be looking at the NFL. Guys may be looking at the transfer portal. You don't have your starting quarterback. You don't have your defensive captain. Like, it could have been a lay-down situation. Tiger Stadium was not full. It was an early morning kickoff. Like, a lot of factors point in the wrong direction for LSU, down 14-0 in that game. And ultimately, you saw a defense respond and an offense get it done. And I think I will lead with the defense here because you get that punt block for a touchdown, and then Arkansas goes down and gets a score, and you look up, and it's 14-0. And from there, LSU really put the clamps on a good Arkansas offense. That team stinks. They never win. They find ways to lose. They're a losing football program and organization right now. And they did that on Saturday, and LSU found a way to win. And the defense held Taylor Green to 11 for 19 passing for 165 yards. This is the nation's leader in total offense. He completed 58% of his throws for $165, threw 2 picks, and didn't have a touchdown pass. That's as good as you can play. Mansour Delane gets the interception in the end zone. Thought it was a great pass breakup by DJ Pickett over the middle of the field. I thought A.J. Halsey was flying around, got hurt, came back in the game. Harold Perkins makes a really athletic play to get an interception. Like, LSU's pass defense was excellent. This is a pass defense that has not been excellent really for 3 years. And on Saturday, they played awesome. I don't know what Bobby Petrino is thinking before the end of the first half when he calls a timeout to save some time, brings the team over to the sideline, and then they come back out down there in the red area and go one-on-one, throw a slant, fade, whatever you want to call it. It wasn't executed properly at Mansour Delane. How about, like, anything else in the playbook? But they went at LSU's best guy, and LSU's best guy burned him. And I think Mansour Delane deserves to be a finalist for the Thorpe Award. I think he should probably win the Thorpe Award. I cannot lie to you. I cannot sit here and say I've watched every DB in the country play. I haven't. If you show me some evidence there's somebody that's playing significantly better, I'm open to that information. I just don't have it currently. This guy's been awesome. And he was a good player at Virginia Tech. But he shows up in Baton Rouge as a third-team All-ACC player. He's worked his way to a first-round pick under the tutelage of Corey Raymond. And that's something I talked about on my post-game show on Saturday afternoon. Like, whoever the new coach is, whoever that is, Corey Raymond does not clean out his office. Back out recruiting. Go find me another DJ Pickett and use the development that you're about to show with Mansour Delane as your ammo in recruiting. Because this guy was a good player at Virginia Tech. He's a great player now. And he's been with Corey Raymond for 11 months. Game-changing play by Mansour Delane in the first half there to get that interception. LSU goes down and gets a field goal there to take the lead before halftime. And then you only allowed one touchdown drive in the third quarter. And that was it. You look at Arkansas's drive charts, and the Hogs, after halftime, turnover on downs, touchdown, punt, and then the missed field goal from range. But that's the only times that they got the ball because LSU dominated time of possession in this game. 35 minutes to 25 minutes. You get a 10-minute advantage with you having the football, and at the end of the game, you go down and you get the 5-minute drive that matters to run the clock out. And that's the part that I want to go to next here is Michael Van Buren, the element that he gave LSU's offense that allowed LSU to take the lead and then finish the game. You know, the last touchdown, he makes the play to evade the pressure, roll out to the right, and then hit an open Bauer Sharp in the end zone. That was just using his athleticism to extend a play and then make the play that was available there. That's the best way that Michael Van Buren plays football. He's not always in rhythm. He's not always on time. He's not always accurate. There's a lot of development Michael Van Buren's going to have to go through throughout his career as a college player. But he is a good athlete, and he can make some plays kind of running around. And he did that for the touchdown. And then on the final drive where LSU gets into his 2nd and 16 and he runs for over 30 yards, that's not something that Garrett Nussmeier had available to him. And Michael Van Buren makes that play to get out of a terrible down and distance situation, continue the drive, and LSU ends up running the clock out. So I thought that Van Buren gave you some of those attributes that you hadn't had all year, and they contributed to winning. And then there's the final play I want to talk about. We go from the defense, which, well, I guess the start was awesome job of coming out and playing hard when you fall behind. Then awesome job by the defense to limit Arkansas to only 15 real offensive points. And then Van Buren showing his skill set. And then the fourth kind of thing is Harlan Berry's decision at the end of the game, which I thought was so mature and so refreshing to see. Because LSU is sitting here with a 1-point lead. You've got the ball. Clock's getting down. Got a timeout, Arkansas. LSU comes back on the field, and they get the ball to Harlan Berry, who makes a hellacious cut to leave that Arkansas guy standing still at the line of scrimmage and bust it to the outside. And at that point, it's the fourth quarter. Your team hasn't won in a month. You've made a guy miss with a great cut. You're in the open field. You're running right at the student section. Like, that is a dream for a freshman to put that thing in the end zone. And Harlan Berry slides. Now, I don't know if they told him on the sideline to do that pre-snap. I don't know if that's something that he determined he was going to do, if he had the awareness in the moment to do it. Any way you slice it, the coaching that he got, his ability to do it, to hit the deck in that spot as a freshman was wise beyond his years and was awesome. Because, look, you go down there and score, you kick the extra point, go up 8, you're going to kick the ball back to Arkansas with over a minute to go, and, like, they got a decent chance to go down there and get points. Like, I wouldn't have bet on it the way LSU's defense was playing, but that's a good offense you've got there. And a good offensive coach, playmaking quarterback. Like, you absolutely bring losing into the equation if you go score a touchdown. I don't think you would have lost, but you bring losing into the equation if you go score a touchdown on that play, he didn't. And it's not one that generally is going to make the highlight tape, not one that a lot of people are going to talk about from the game, but it's one that I absolutely wanted to kind of finish my thoughts on this game with that, because I was so impressed with Harlan Berry. The move was awesome. The speed to get to the outside was great. The awareness to hit the deck in that spot was awesome to see. So for LSU, look, this is not one that I think I'm not going to make the point that, Harlan Berry, great day running the football. Caden Durham, great day running the football. Michael Van Buren, the quarterback of the future. What a great momentum-building day for LSU's football program. I'm not going there. I don't know who the coach is going to be next year. I don't know who the quarterback's going to be next year. I don't know who the running back's going to be next year. I don't know anything about next year's team. There's about to be a lot of upheaval at LSU. Head coach, position coaches, current roster, high school recruits, the whole thing is being shaken up. So I'm not here to give you some sort of big picture program momentum thing. This was about a great afternoon on Saturday for those players who hadn't won in a month. For that coach to lead that team, his home state team, out of that tunnel with 40 of his family members there, and then for him to get the ice bath, and then for him to go into the locker room and get all fired up with the guys. If y'all have seen that video on Instagram of him turning that corner and going nuts with the guys, that's what I talked about on Friday. I don't know if they'll play well. I don't know if they're going to beat Arkansas. I picked them to lose. You will get effort from that team right now. It's so rare in college athletics that players quit, that they lay down, that they don't give effort. It happens sometimes, but it's rare. And you got that great effort from LSU, and it was obvious that was coming. It was obvious if you walked by football practice last week like I did. It was obvious talking to the players. It was obvious listening to Frank Wilson. And they didn't get off to a good start, but they brought energy and effort. And they played well on defense. They did enough on offense. You want to give them, if you want to give them the Harlan Berry's touchdown at the end, they would have scored 30. So that's good. But the defense holds Arkansas to 15. That's great. And good for those guys to have that afternoon in that stadium to celebrate a win. Because, look, it's been a month. And you never know what's to come. So when you got an opportunity to win a game like that, go do it. Great for them. I don't think it means a hill of beans to LSU's football program moving forward, but it's a good night to be a Tiger in that stadium on Saturday night. So good for them getting that victory. LSU wins it 23-22. Now, there is that big picture that's looming. And that's moving forward with LSU into a coaching search. And I believe what you saw in Oxford, Mississippi on Saturday was a big-time moment in Ole Miss football history that I think is going to have a wild turn of events in the next 2 weeks. So I want to talk about that from my perspective in the next segment. We'll get to Michael Katz in Oxford, who covers Ole Miss, 15 minutes from now. Don't go anywhere. It's the Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Genesis brings you our opening drive. Every car is on the lot at genesisofbatonrouge.com. Every car that's on the lot is online at genesisofbatonrouge.com, I should say. So if you're living in a delivery world, you need food, you get it delivered. You need toiletries, you get them delivered. You need groceries, you get them delivered. Get everything delivered. You can get your car delivered. Get the test drive sent right to your front door. If you decide you want to purchase it, they'll send that to your front door as well. It's all about customer service, convenience, and the experience that comes with being a Genesis driver. As I mentioned, if you got a tight schedule or you can't get out to Airline Highway to test drive the car, have them come to you at the office. Have them come to you at home. One of their sales team will drive up. You can get behind the wheel, test drive it. If you decide that's what I want, they'll digitally deliver you the car and the contracts right there. It's all about convenience at Genesis of Baton Rouge. It's an unbelievable line of vehicles. Every single model in the line is an IHS top safety pick. So you know you're in one of the safest cars on the road. It's Genesis of Baton Rouge. You can find that entire inventory online at genesisofbatonrouge.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
All right, we'll go to Oxford here in 15 minutes. I realize that LSU played a game on Saturday. They got another one coming up. There's a lot going on here, but I think this is the national story of college football that very, very much involves LSU. So I want to spend some time on it, and then we'll get Michael's thoughts from Oxford here in 15 minutes. Let me paint you this picture as I see it from obviously the outside, but as I see it in Oxford right now. Ole Miss played a primetime game on Saturday night. They played the Florida Gators at home at night and won the game to move to 10-1 on the season. They have an off week this coming week, and then they play in Starkville against Mississippi State. They've never in their history won 11 games in a regular season. So if they beat Mississippi State in Starkville, they'll go 11-1, lock in a playoff spot with the greatest regular season in school history. I mean, I guess you could talk about one of the teams in the 50s that went undefeated under Vaught, but like, this is as good as it's ever been at Ole Miss in most people's lifetimes. And Saturday was that time to relish in that. And they packed the stadium with the biggest crowd in the history of Ole Miss football, more than 68,000. And you can snicker at that from down here in Baton Rouge, and that's fine. Like, it's Ole Miss. It's significantly smaller stadium than Baton Rouge, and that may tie into what we're getting into here. But that's as good as they can do. The Grove, Vaught Hemingway, at night, light shows, taking over in the second half, running the football, beating Florida, setting up a potential 11-1 season. And in all of that awesomeness, Lane Kiffin went to the podium and was asked if he would be the coach at Ole Miss next year, and he just didn't answer. Said, I love what we're doing here. I don't want to talk about that. It's not respectful to our players. It's not pertinent to what we're talking about here. Those guys played so well. We played so well. Today was awesome. But he wouldn't say, yeah, I'm going to be the guy. This is he's built this program from the ashes to this point. And he won't answer the question. And now, because of that, you've got politicians in Mississippi tweeting at him about how he needs to reciprocate the love that Mississippi has shown him and give them an answer. He's got a contract extension on his desk. He won't sign it. Look at what's gone on around the country. Mike Elko signed a contract extension this weekend. Kirk Cignetti signed a contract extension during the season. It's right there. He won't sign it. And you've got folks in Gainesville feeling very confident that he's going to be Florida's next coach. You're starting to hear buzz in Baton Rouge that there's significant potential that LSU is targeting Lane Kiffin. And he's not quieting any of it in the midst of the most important run of his coaching career. And you're starting to hear people in Oxford that cover that team say, look, people are losing patience at Ole Miss, and they may be adamant that they need an answer now. And you could potentially see over the course of the next 2 weeks, Lane Kiffin just leave a playoff team for LSU or Florida. That could happen. It would be unprecedented. I don't know that it would be the last time it happens because of this crazy schedule that we've got. But because of when firings now happen, and because when high school signing day is, and because of when the portal opens, and because of also when the playoff is played, if you're going to jump ship, well, you may have to do it before that season concludes. And that possibility is now really growing in Oxford. Until he says, I'm not going anywhere, here's the contract extension, you're just fanning the flames. And the flames are just about out of control in North Mississippi. It's such an odd situation because you coach and you do that to get to the pinnacle of the sport. And if Lane Kiffin leaves Ole Miss for either Florida or LSU, which is still very much a possibility, he would be leaving with an opportunity to be at the pinnacle of the sport. Like, Ole Miss has lost one game this year in Athens, Georgia, to a top 5 team. I don't think it's a ridiculous overreaction to suggest that this Ole Miss team could win the national championship. I wouldn't bet on them. I think there are 4 or 5 teams that are better than them. But it's not impossible. And he would essentially be throwing up the white flag and going, I just don't know if I can win here, even though, like, this team could win. 15 years ago, leaving Oxford, Mississippi for Gainesville, Florida, and or Baton Rouge, Louisiana would have been a no-brainer. But in an era where Vanderbilt's knocking on the playoffs door and Indiana's already in the playoff, and they were last year, this is their second year in a row they're going to make it, and Ole Miss is making this playoff, like, you got to kind of redirect the prism with which you view the sport. And it feels like Lane Kiffin is looking for his way out of Oxford. And it might be a situation where the powers that be in Ole Miss help him pack his bags before they play Mississippi State in 2 weeks. That's not me reporting. I'm not telling you that's going to happen. I obviously don't have tight sources in Oxford, but I can read and I can listen to podcasts and I can watch press conferences. And the way that Dan Lanning and Kirk Cignetti and Mike Elko are handling themselves in the midst of this great stuff is the exact opposite of the way that Lane Kiffin is handling himself in Oxford. And the folks at Ole Miss love him because of what he's done there. He took a program that absolutely stunk and accomplished nothing ever and has taken it toward the top of the SEC. They're going to beat Mississippi State in 2 weeks, in my opinion, and they'll have won 50 games in the last 5 years. That is an average of 10 wins per season at Ole Miss, not with like one quarterback who got it done. Over 5 years, he's done this, and they love him for that. But they've got to do this song and dance every November. Hey, you going to Auburn or you're not? You going to Auburn? You're not? Okay, and then you tell us that you needed Oxford more than Oxford needed you, and that your family's going to be there. And then all of a sudden, you look up, and you got an opportunity to stay at Oxford, and it's like, well, probably going to look around. I mean, I was listening to Blue Sky Live, which is Chase Parham and Neil McCrady's podcast. Those two guys have covered Ole Miss for 2 decades. And they said today on that podcast that Layla Kiffin, Lane's ex-wife, who lives in the same area as the family and they co-parent their 3 children, that she was in Gainesville yesterday. That's what Chase Parham said this morning on their podcast. And it's, to me, it feels far, and this is just my opinion from reading and watching Lane Kiffin and listening to those guys in Oxford, and we'll see what Michael says in 5 minutes when we have him on. And his view may be different than mine. I'm just reading tea leaves and making guesses. I thought as of 2 weeks ago, based on timing, that Lane Kiffin was going to stay at Ole Miss. I think it's less than a 50% chance, as I sit here today on Monday, that he will be there for 2 more weeks. I think the thing that would change that is if Lane Kiffin woke up one morning this week. They don't have a game this week. If he woke up on Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday of this week and went, I can't leave a playoff team. And I think that would cement him in Oxford for what I believe to be a very long time. Because at that point, LSU would have come open twice. Florida would have come open twice. A&M would have come open. Bama came open. And he hasn't gotten into his jobs. He hasn't left. It's possible. But I'm telling you right now, I think his time at Ole Miss is done. I think he's going to take one of these 2 jobs. And it will be such a dark day for Ole Miss football when that happens. When you get the guy who finally pulls you out of the rut and brings you into national relevance, and he decides in the middle of the best run in school history, I can't do it here. Like, that is a gut punch that is going to be difficult to swallow for the people in Oxford. And they'll throw their arms around the next head coach and say, this guy actually does love us, and this is the guy we're more than Lane Kiffin. But the fact of the matter is that if you want to look at the last 50 years, they're not more than Lane Kiffin. They're Eli Manning and Lane Kiffin. And that's about it. And Eli's out of eligibility, and I think Lane is headed out of town. And that is a startling deal for LSU. And if you're looking at it for Ole Miss, and if you're looking at it from an LSU perspective, like, 1, he may be your next coach. 2, Ole Miss is one of your permanents. They're one of your annuals. What's that going to look like if he's not there? I know what the odds would say. The odds would say not very good. And if you're an Ole Miss fan, you can point to the collective being great, and you can point to the athletic director is doing a good job, and you can point to what Ole Miss has done over the last 5 years, and you can try all that. But there's one reason that's all chugging along, and he wears the visor and the sweatshirt, and I don't think it's going to be red and blue next year. So that's where I am on this thing. I wanted to give you my perspective on it. Now we're going to step aside. We'll go to Oxford. We'll talk to Michael Katz. I texted with him earlier today to kind of get his pulse on kind of where things were. And he said, look, I don't know anything, but I just want him to paint the picture as he sees it. He was in Vaught-Hemingway on Saturday. He was in that press conference on Saturday night, and he's in that town right now. And obviously there's nothing that's buzzing in Oxford, Mississippi quite like the Lane Kiffin saga and where things sit right now. I think it's, quite frankly, more interesting than LSU beating Arkansas, and I think it's more interesting than LSU getting ready for Western Kentucky. There are some more things for LSU we want to talk about with the quarterback situation and all that we'll get into. But right now, to me, this is the most compelling thing in college football, and LSU is right in the middle of it. So we'll come back and talk with Michael Katz about it next.
The Hunt Palmer Show. This is the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
Chugging along here on a Monday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. Appreciate y'all for starting your work week with us. Let's head out to Oxford, Mississippi, where things are a little bit interesting at the moment. Michael Katz covers the Ole Miss Rebels for the Northeast Mississippi Daily Journal. Good enough to give us a little bit of time here. Michael, how are you?
Never a dull moment here, as you know.
It's kind of the same around here, to be quite frank. Just not a lot of wins. There are plenty of those in Oxford, Mississippi, but the question is, how many more does Lane Kiffin have there? What I want to do with you right now is paint me the picture this weekend, Saturday, pregame, during the game, and then postgame press conference. Like, what was your perspective of that entire day on Ole Miss's campus?
I mean, it was I don't know if I've ever seen anything quite like it, just because, obviously people here are a little bit on edge, the fans and people around the program. And, obviously there's a lot of rumors going around. And then, of course, you've got, Florida traveled to this game, too, fairly well. And you've got fans in the Grove wearing, We Want Lane shirts and stuff like that. And then you've got this just electric atmosphere for a game that I think was probably a little bit closer than people thought would be coming in. And Ole Miss wins that game. And one of probably the best crowd I've seen since I've been here in my fifth season covering them. Best crowd I've seen. Then after the game, you've got fans chanting, "We Want Lane." You got this 10-1 team that is doing things that I don't think a lot of people thought they were going to do this year. And, for better or worse, that's not what anybody's talking about. And so then you go to the post-game press conference, and, normally you'd be talking about a very good game that had some, interesting turning points. And that was not what anybody wanted to talk about. Obviously he had to ask questions about his future, and we didn't get any answers, which wasn't particularly surprising. That's generally how he operates. It was an amazing atmosphere. It was an amazing game. And it's, you got this team that is on the verge of making the playoff. It's ranked in the top 5 in the AP poll right now. And, it's kind of on the back burner, because everybody wants to know, who is he going to be the head coach here, for the playoff run, for next year. Like, what is going to happen? I don't think anyone really knows quite yet.
Maybe Lane doesn't even know, but he's certainly not saying anything publicly to indicate that he's committed to Ole Miss for the long term. How is that playing in Oxford right now?
It's playing about as well as you can, as you would imagine it is. I think there's just a lot of. I think people are a little frustrated, and I don't think anyone. Again, we're not surprised. This is how he's operating. This is how he's always operated. He's never talked about this stuff during the season. And he it seems like every year there's some job that he's up for or that he's being mentioned with, and it just generally is. He hasn't ever been one to talk about it, but I think people are frustrated because listen, he's built this program up and they're doing things that frankly they have probably never done before, and if they have, it was in the '60s at Ole Miss, and you've got a championship caliber program right now, and I think that he's said all these great things about Oxford and how it's changed him, and this is a place he's never been happier, and I think that fans are like, okay, well, you're saying all this, why don't you just sign the new contract, or why don't you commit? I think there's this sort of disconnect there that is frustrating for people. That that E60 documentary that came out a few months ago about how Oxford's changed his life, and I think people are a little frustrated because it's been so great for you, but why won't you commit to us? I think there's that disconnect is frustrating for people.
Do you have a good answer or your opinion on that as to why I'm assuming there's a contract extension from Keith Carter on his desk that would make him the highest paid or one of the highest paid coaches in all of football. Do you have an opinion as to why he hasn't signed that?
I mean, it's the way he operates. I think there's probably some negotiation, leveraging situations going on when you're hearing people out. You obviously you get a little bit more at the table with where you're at, and there's probably NIL implications. I'm sure there's a lot of different things that are being negotiated through, and of course, and agents do what agents do, and I think they're always trying to get as much leverage as they can. So, I know Keith Carter has said that. He said a few months ago that he wanted to get something done. It's probably frustrating for people that it hasn't gotten done, but it's not surprising because I think the earliest he's ever gotten one done was like December in terms of extension. So this is just kind of the way it goes with him.
Michael Katz covers Ole Miss for the Northeast Mississippi Daily Journal, talking Lane Kiffin and his situation there in Oxford. I'm not going to hold you to this, but do you have a feeling on what the next 6 weeks holds for Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss?
It honestly kind of depends when you ask me. Honestly, I'll 1 second, I'm like, I think he stays, and then I read something like, oh boy, I'm going to be covering a coaching search. Honestly, it's minute to minute here, and I don't know if he knows quite yet, and I think that's probably something people need to kind of put into perspective here, is that I don't think a decision has been made yet, one way or the other. Obviously it's the bye week, so maybe this provides a little clarity, but maybe not. Obviously, you got the Egg Bowl coming up too. But this is a program that's trying to make the playoff and do what it couldn't do last year and do something it's never done before, which is make a playoff. So, I think Lane is focused on this season. I know he was hyper focused on the Florida game. I am curious what the bye week looks like for him, and if anything sort of develops. But I honestly, depending when you ask me, I'll probably have a different answer for you about what it looks like.
Look, if he decides to stay and signs that contract extension, we know what that looks like. It looks like Ole Miss winning a lot of football games while he's the head coach there. So that's not really a question we need to ask. The question would be the bigger variable. If he leaves for Florida right after the Egg Bowl or right before the Egg Bowl, before they play a playoff game, what does that mean for Ole Miss football? And what about his legacy there, I'm assuming, would be drastically different?
Yeah, you kind of go from people wanting to build a statue to no one's ever going to want to say your name again. And if they do, there's probably going to be some choice words around it. It's really kind of crazy how everything, the legacy and the wins and everything that he's done here and taken his program to levels it really hasn't been at. Again, Ole Miss has 11 10-win seasons ever, and 4 of them have been in the last 5 years under Lane. You can't deny what he's done here. But I think that all that goodwill kind of goes out the window if he goes not just to another place, but an SEC school, I mean that's a killer, especially with Florida, because we've that one's been talked about for really since last year when people thought Billy Napier might get canned. Obviously he survived a year, but when things got weren't going great early for Florida, Lane's the first thing that comes up. So it's fascinating. I don't fair or not. I think that his entire legacy changes if he goes, and I think Ole Miss is still going to be in a good place. I mean, this program is, they got the funding, the NIL, the collective, the facilities. I mean, everything in Oxford is in a pretty good place. Obviously, having a head coach makes a huge difference. But I think if Lane did leave, I think Keith is a really good athletic director. I think he would find a good guy for the job. Obviously, it's hard to know would they win at the same level that Lane has, but I think that they are in a good spot if it does happen.
It's going to be fascinating. Should be a wild ride there in Oxford either way. Michael Katz covers Ole Miss for the Northeast Mississippi Daily Journal. Good enough to give us a little bit of time on this Monday. Enjoy it, and whatever the future holds here for the next couple of weeks, we'll catch up down the road.
All right, talk to you later, man.
That is Michael Katz. I think it's just evident to me, again, and this is, we know that 3 years ago, that Lane was all the way down the road for Auburn, because he was going to take that job, and then his family kind of convinced him not to do it. And then now you've got all this noise that he just refuses to tamp down at the most important spot in his coaching career. Like, he's 50 years old. This is the biggest spot he's ever coached in, and he's not tamping down the drama. It just feels like he's always been looking for the escape hatch. And there are two of them now that have bigger brands than Ole Miss in the last 30 years of the sport. Neither one of them is in a great spot right now, and Ole Miss is. But maybe this is the escape hatch he's looking for. This is something that I'll stick my neck out to an extent here. Not too far, but a little bit. I think Lane Kiffin's going to leave Ole Miss. I think he's going to leave Ole Miss. I don't know if he's coming to LSU. I don't know if he's going to Florida. But I think he's going to leave. It wouldn't stun me if he stayed. It would be one of those deals where he woke up and said, it's like the Auburn deal. He woke up and went, I just can't. And that wouldn't stun me. But if you made me right now, I would say he's going to leave Ole Miss in the middle of a playoff run. And I think that is wild. So we'll see. Let's take a time out, come back, close out the hour with Dr. Jeremy Burnham from Oxford next.
The Hunt Palmer Show. You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
Wrapping up hour number one here on this Monday. Sports Health, presented by Ochsner Andrews Orthopedics and Sports Medicine Institute. Chatting with Dr. Jeremy Burnham, who joins us every couple of weeks. Dr. Burnham, how are you, sir?
Hey, I'm doing great. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you. I want to talk about Joe Burrow because I saw the report last week that he is opening his practice window, is eligible to return over the next 21 days from what was a very significant foot issue, turf toe issue. And the general consensus from the NFL reporters that I was following was that this is way quicker than they had anticipated. I'm curious, in your experience, like what, in terms of rehab and aggressiveness and, the patient, like how does one progress more rapidly than others?
Well, I think it really is a team approach. From what I read, he went down and had surgery with Dr. Andrews' team in Florida. And I think, when you take a competitive athlete that is driven, and then you take a team of people around him between, the people with him on his team, but also the sports medicine team and rehab and all those types of things. And, you can achieve some amazing outcomes. And obviously he's committed and dedicated to doing it. He's probably doing very well in his rehab course. I think the earliest reported return to play that I saw in the NFL after this type of surgery was 12 weeks. And it's usually 15 to 16. So he's a little bit ahead of that, But I think when you do everything just right and you're a competitor and also a great athlete, that sometimes you can do that a little bit faster than average.
I mean, I realize that guys want to get back on the field. But can you like give it more effort as far as rehabilitation, or is it just a deal where the doctors have done a great job and he's got a body that is willing to heal? I mean, I would imagine that like it's not a deal where he's just trying harder than other players would be trying.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a little bit of all of the above. You know, some things you just have to wait on the body's biology to heal. There's certainly cases where if you don't do rehab with the intensity and consistency that you need to, that you won't get better as soon as you should. But no matter how great you are at the rehab, there's still some part of that you're just waiting on your body to heal. Now, he's young and he's healthy, and you would imagine that he is doing everything he can to optimize his nutrition and his sleep and every other part of the rehab. And I do think people have better outcomes when they really can manage it holistically like that, and that really shows in this case as well.
He is tenacious in just about every aspect of his football life, so not a huge surprise there for Joe Burrow. We're talking earlier today on Friday over at Nexus, Louisiana. Y'all had a technology fest, and we talk about the preventative measures that y'all are researching with ACL injuries. Can you kind of give us an update on what you saw last Friday?
Yeah, Hunt. I mean, we just really that was a part of one of the coolest things I think I've had or been a part of in my career. So Nexus, Louisiana is basically a company, shout out Tony Zanders, they are doing some really innovative things in this state, and they're bringing together the best talent from all over the state. And they held something called Dev Days. And that basically was a tech competition, and they put some parameters out there. And the main goal this year was injury prevention. We talk a lot about ACLs, right? Our number one goal is to try to prevent them from happening at all. And so they sent this out around the state, and they had, I think, 70 different teams sent in proposals, and they picked the top 10 of those proposals. And then we went over there Friday and basically spent the afternoon listening to the proposals and then judging and picking a winner. And I was just blown away with the talent in the state. Most of these are college students, undergrad, master's students. And really the things that they came up with, all 10 of the presentations literally just blew me away. And I told them all this at the end. I said any of these things, if they were to implement them fully, would make a huge difference in our state. They focused a lot on, individualized plans for patients depending on what their movement patterns were, or the sport they played, or their individual biology in terms of how to get them back. The winning team was called NEVA, so kind of a play on words in knee there, and they really focused on the female athlete, and they had a dashboard and computer software that basically would kind of give you an individualized risk and then come up with an individualized training plan. And what was really cool, Hunt, is they had a prototype of a knee brace that would detect the knee going into a risky position and would then basically inflate and activate and keep the knee from tearing the ACL. And it really just blew me away. I was so impressed, and I'm looking forward to seeing what these things are going to develop into.
It's incredible to hear stuff like that right here in our state at the forefront of all that. Ochsner right in the middle of it. Dr. Burnham, we appreciate a ton of your time today. Let's have a great week.
Great talking to you, Hunt. Thank you.
Dr. Jeremy Burnham from Ochsner with us every other Monday. That's, incredible to hear. Whenever Dr. Burnham talks about this kind of stuff, one, I'm just blown away at the ability that some people have. I sit here and yap about sports. They're making a real difference out here. But I think about something that Theo Epstein said, who was obviously a Hall of Fame executive, will be a Hall of Fame executive, who helped snap the curse of the Red Sox and the Cubs. And when he left the Cubs, he was asked, what's on the next forefront for baseball as far as cutting edge stuff? Because it was the Moneyball stuff, right? That was the big deal, and the advanced analytics, that was a big deal. And he said, if you could figure out a way to help prevent injury, then you would be on the cutting edge, and you would have a huge advantage over all the other organizations. And the folks over at Ochsner are making a difference to try to do things preventatively. He's mentioned multiple times on this show that female athletes are at a greater risk of tearing the ACL. And so to have the prototype that they're introducing there, that these young people are creating, that could potentially have the technology to prevent some of that is absolutely amazing to hear. And something for our state to be proud of, which I like. Because there's sometimes we look up and go, not again. But not in that case. I appreciate Dr. Burnham for shedding some light on that. So that's going to wrap up hour number one here on this Monday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. A lot of Lane Kiffin talk here in hour number one. There is also some news, and I've got about 50 seconds so I can bring this up. We've got a story up at louisianasports.net. We got some information earlier today that we haven't been able to confirm. The Lane Kiffin's ex-wife, Layla, is in Baton Rouge today looking around. So she was in Gainesville yesterday. That was according to Chase Parham, who I heard earlier. I talked about that earlier today. Now Layla Kiffin is looking around. So that's just the situation where things are. And it's why I said back in our last segment, I've said earlier on, I think Lane Kiffin's time in Oxford is coming to a close. We'll see. He can always change his mind, but it just feels like the way things are trending right now. Going to be in Gainesville, going to be here? I don't know. Maybe we'll talk about it a little bit more in hour number 2. Got Denton Day in 35 minutes. We'll come back with our second hour on this Monday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Genesis of Baton Rouge. GenesisofBatonRouge.com is the website. Every car that's on the lot is online at GenesisofBatonRouge.com. GV80 is such an awesome ride. It's their midsize SUV. It's perfect for a small family like the one that we have in the Palmer house. Got enough room, but it's also stylish, comfortable, and it's an IHA top safety pick, one of the safest cars on the road. If you're looking for a new SUV, how about the GV80? Go check that out at Genesis of Baton Rouge. They're on airline at Pico. If you're in the market for a new vehicle in Baton Rouge, I always say, you're probably on airline anyway. Just stop on by at Pico. You'll see their amazing facility, their amazing staff, and their amazing line of vehicles that I promise you will blow you away. If you have not been by Genesis, you have not been behind the wheel of a Genesis, just put them on your list. Maybe it's a holiday new car. Maybe it's a 2026 new car. Genesis Baton Rouge is happy to help you out there. Airline at Pico or online at GenesisofBatonRouge.com. GenesisofBatonRouge.com.